budget and the start of progressive taxation, which I take to mean restoring the income tax cuts and taxing wealthier Minnesotans so that we have tax fairness in the state. If that's not true, please correct me. But if that was your program, what can you tell us that you would do differently, that you will sell that idea of your campaign when you were unable to sell it to the public and even to your own caucus this last session?
Well, Eric, we weren't unable to sell it to the general public. I would like to say to you all, the general public supports the fairness in taxation. And I want to be clear, I'm not for necessarily just rolling back the rates, because that does raise income tax on the lowest Minnesotans in the lowest income brackets. We need to make it more fair. So making it more fair is being able to start with the upper end of that income tax. It's also taking the tax expenditure budget and making that more fair. Because right now we have a lot of money that flows out to things that are inefficient or not really accomplishing the goals that people have for them. So I don't think we were losing with the public on this. We just lost with one person who happens to have the power to sign the bill. Minnesotans know the tax system has become less fair. Their property taxes are going to go up $272 million again this year. They know that they're paying more taxes. They just happen to not be paying it fairly.
Number 3, Alice.
My name is Alice Evanston. I'm a Take Action Minnesota leader from South Minneapolis. I believe that racism is not just an issue of individual prejudice. Racism is the result of ongoing inequities in our systems and institutions. These inequities are passed down from generation to generation. As it states in the reNEW Minnesota vision, we commit to eradicating racism in our society today and to undoing the continued impacts of past racism. And the question, what will you do as a candidate for governor to step away from tapping into people's fear and playing on the divisions in our community about race? And what is your plan to talk about race in a way that builds community and hope?
Well, Alice, I think it starts with respect. I think that's where we have to begin. And for me, that's not a hard thing to do. That's how I start every conversation. Whether it's a conversation where we might have a difference because our skin is a different color, where we have a gender difference, where we have a political identity difference. And so for me, it starts with respect, and then it goes from there. So how am I going to govern to make it differently? I think that's the heart of the question here. How are you going to govern to make this differently? You know, our state government has to reflect the diversity of Minnesota in all the great ways that that means. Whether it means race, whether it means sharing in economic opportunity, whether it means being able to make sure that we are lifting people up into positions that they can serve and be the leaders. Already we have so many great leaders who could serve and could be called into the state government. I am really committed to making sure that our state government reflects the diversity of Minnesota. Now in the campaign, I'm having a little bit of trouble even thinking about why I wouldn't just talk about it the way I would always talk about it, which is to respect people and to hear people, to listen to where people are at, and to take from people's stories and experiences the changes that need to happen in our state. That's actually the thing that energizes me the most about this campaign, is that people are sharing both their concerns, their stories, their hopes, and their dreams for themselves, their families, their community, and the state. And so I think being a person who brings voice to that is going to be the most important part of changing that. I think I'm going to stop there and see if there's a follow-up to that. And I have a little bit of time, so.
Yeah. I can follow up to that too. I really appreciate you talking about governing differently, certainly by appointment, and being very specific to that. Could you please speak to governing differently by policy? What sort of institutionalized barriers exist that you're going to prioritize as governor?
Sure. Well, I think that, we know that there is a an achievement gap. My husband and I chose many years ago to live in Minneapolis because we think it's important that our children have a diverse experience. But we know that there is a big gap between kids of color and kids in the majority who have less poverty to face. And so there's a poverty gap, there's an achievement gap, there's a racial gap. For me, that's a big one to close. And that's where I think the combination of early ed and a new K-12 funding formula are important. I also think it's important in some of these barriers that we've seen around making sure that there is fairness going forward in sharing in the wealth of community. You know, I think that when we have public money going into things, that we have an obligation to make sure there are opportunities for all Minnesotans to participate in that. And so tearing down those barriers of where there is systematic, and sometimes it's also making sure there's opportunity inserted in. Okay?
Number 4 is Denny.
Denny.
Thanks for coming. For me with my chair. I'm Denny Schneider, Take Action Team Leader from Woodbury. Questions you've had so far have dealt with your core values and beliefs and how those relate to our reNEW.mn vision. But you need to win to help move those forward. So I'd like to talk to you about how you plan to win. I've been an elected official on the city council and been a campaign manager where we successfully beat Republican representative and then won re-election. Successful candidates usually have some differentiator, some critical differentiator coupled with some unique campaign strategy. The candidate I worked with had enhanced academic equipment. Another House candidate was a popular, well-known teacher of the year. Their campaigns were crafted to leverage these unique abilities and skills, and were successful. So, Speaker, we know that you'll work hard. We know that you'll assemble a great team. We know that you'll hone and refine your message, and that you'll do all of the things that are expected of your candidate. But besides these, what makes your candidacy unique and different from past losing candidates? What special qualifications or qualities and what accompanying campaign strategy will make you a winner?
Well, thank you for that. I would not put myself before you to run for governor if I did not think that I offered something different. And what I offer that's different is a different way of looking at Minnesota. Both because I lived 20 years in rural Minnesota and I lived 20 years in metro Minnesota, and in that I've learned that how you solve problems best is people coming around the table to attack the problem and challenge and not each other. I don't accept whining in solving our largest problems. We just don't have time for it. We're in a race for our life as a state to make it better. You only are blessed with a certain amount of time in these elected positions. I will not waste a moment of our time and a moment of your time. In the campaign, we have a people-powered campaign. We have made 27,000 phone calls already. That's a people-powered campaign, not by paying somebody to do it, but by the old-fashioned way, the volunteer way of doing it. I reflect this skill in that I don't accept that we can't get it done, or that we can't connect to rural Minnesotans, or we can't connect to Minnesotans who maybe haven't voted before. I believe we can do it. I think also the skill of deep listening. And I think that my colleagues would tell you that that is a skill that a lot of other people do not have. You know, I'm less about the talking, and I know I do a lot of talking here tonight because you're asking me questions, but when you meet with me one-on-one, I want to hear your story. And I want to be able to translate that into action. And I am very good at doing that. I'm a proven effective leader. The next governor, the day after the election, has 12 weeks to put together that biennial budget. The skill that I have in the 10 years of the Budget Committee and the 3 times I've put together a complete state budget will be invaluable in being successful at putting our values together in a budget proposal that then I will work with the legislature on getting passed. This is not going to be the time for training wheels. We need to get this done and be successful. And so those skills, that ability to listen, not accepting whining, and getting people around the table are the most